History remembers the greats, the warriors who led armies to victory, the rulers who built empires from dust, the kings and queens who turned chaos into order. Alexander, Akbar, Lincoln, Mandela, their legacies carved into stone, their names etched into civilization's bones. But power doesn't always create greatness. Sometimes it creates monsters. They ruled through fear, using violence not as punishment, but as policy. Untouchable, unchecked, shielded by impunity. They didn't lead, they controlled. They turned cities into prisons and silence into law. Not guardians of peace, but architects of suffering. Some claimed God, others destiny. A few just enjoyed the pain. This isn't legend. It's the mirror history hides. In no particular order, these are 10 of the most brutal leaders in history. Number 10. Queen Mary I, Bloody Mary for faith. She was born a princess, but her world unraveled when her father, Henry VIII, cast aside her mother and married Anne Boleyn, a stepmother so cruel Mary feared she might be executed. Still, Mary survived. And in 1553, she became the first woman to rule England in her own right. Her mission? To restore Catholicism in a kingdom torn by religious war, even if it meant turning her kingdom into a furnace. The child who grew up in fear became a queen others would come to dread. She ruled with fierce resolve. Between 1555 and 1558, over 280 Protestants, men, women, even the pregnant, were burned alive for refusing to convert. She called it salvation. History called it terror. And the world would remember her not as Queen Mary, but as Bloody Mary. Number 9. Idi Amin, the Butcher of Uganda. In 1971, Uganda changed overnight. Idi Amin, a decorated general, toppled President Milton Obote in a swift military coup. Obote, a brutal dictator, had ruled with a heavy hand. So when Amin took over, many believed a hero had finally arrived. Amin was charismatic, confident, a leader who spoke of unity and strength, a soldier, a man of the people. He promised order, pride, and hope. But the hope didn't last. Beneath the charm lurked a monster. Between 1971 and 1979, an estimated 300,000 people were killed. Through torture, mass executions, and disappearances, tribes were crushed, opponents vanished, terror ruled. Some say Amin kept the bodies of his enemies in a refrigerator, a rumor never proven but believed, because it felt true. His cruelty made even myth feel possible. He claimed to be Uganda's protector, but the world saw a tyrant, drunk on fear and blood. Number 8. Joseph Stalin, the man who broke a nation. After the Russian Civil War and Lenin's death, one man seized absolute control. Joseph Stalin. He promised strength, unity, and a Soviet future forged in steel. But beneath that promise lurked a reign of ruthless terror. Stalin ruled with savage paranoia, his secret police lurking in every shadow. Enemies weren't just silenced. They disappeared into the night, never to return. Over 700,000 were executed during the Great Terror alone, shot, strangled, or sent to vanish in the void. Millions more perished in the brutal gulags, slave labor camps where men and women froze, starved, and died, broken and forgotten. And in Ukraine, Stalin unleashed a deliberate famine, the Holodomor, starving 3.5 to 7 million to death, an act of calculated cruelty designed to crush resistance by extinguishing entire communities. Fear was a weapon sharper than any blade. It ruled every street, every home, every breath in the Soviet Union. A whispered word of dissent meant a one-way ticket to the grave. From the ashes of millions, Stalin forged a superpower. But the blood spilled still stains history's pages. Number 7. Vlad III, the Impaler of Wallachia. He's remembered as the most terrifying ruler of medieval Europe, a man whose cruelty birthed a legend and whose name still drips with fear. Vlad the Impaler. In 15th century Wallachia, Vlad III rose from chaos and swore to defend his land from enemies within and without. But his method was pure horror. His weapon of choice? The stake. Thousands were impaled alive, soldiers, traitors, nobles, their bodies left rotting in fields, forests, and roadsides. An entire army once turned back after seeing a forest of corpses swaying on sharpened poles. This wasn't madness, it was strategy. Vlad ruled through fear, cold, calculated, unrelenting. His blood-soaked reign inspired the legend of Dracula. But the truth was even darker. He didn't need fangs. He had power and a sharpened stake. Number 6. Tamerlane, the Skull King of Conquest. He didn't just raise cities, he silenced them forever. Tamerlane, known as Timur, rose from the unforgiving Central Asian steppes, a crippled warrior with a mind like a blade and a heart cold as iron. He called himself the Sword of God, but his faith marched with fire. His enemies didn't surrender, they disappeared. Rebellion wasn't punished, it was obliterated. When the people of Isfahan resisted, he unleashed terror. 70,000 lives, erased with a single command, their skulls stacked into monstrous pyramids. A warning carved in bone. Delhi was shattered, Baghdad bled dry. Aleppo went silent, no survivors, no second chances. He claimed divine right. But his empire was built on slaughter. By 1405, his wars had killed an estimated 17 million people, 5% of the world's population. He ruled with brutal precision, cold strategy, and merciless wrath. Tamerlane, the conqueror who erased history, one skull at a time. Number 5. Genghis Khan, the scourge of Asia. The cold winds of the Mongolian steppes carried whispers of a storm. A boy named Temujin, born into a world of chaos and blood. He would rise, not as a king, but as Genghis Khan, the unstoppable force who forged the largest contiguous empire in history. His promise? To unite savage tribes under one banner, to bring order, but at a devastating cost. Because his rule wasn't peace, it was destruction. His armies swept like wildfire across Asia into Europe, razing cities to the ground, drowning civilizations in rivers of blood. An estimated 40 million people died. Nearly 10% of the world's population wiped from the earth. His tactics? Relentless mass executions, psychological terror that shattered will, total annihilation of anyone who resisted. Cities that defied him were erased from maps. Men, women, children, all slaughtered without mercy. Yet beneath the bloodshed was a ruthless mind, a strategic genius who wielded speed, fear, and intelligence to rule an empire stretching from China to Europe. An empire larger than modern-day North America. He ruled with iron will and left a legacy carved in fire and blood. Number 4. Pol Pot, the architect of death. In April 1975, the Khmer Rouge captured Phnom Penh. At their head, Pol Pot, a former schoolteacher turned radical revolutionary. He promised to rebuild Cambodia into a communist agrarian utopia. But he didn't want reform, he wanted erasure. Pol Pot ordered cities emptied. Millions were forced into the countryside, stripped of property, families, even names. Hospitals shut down, currency abolished, religion outlawed. His vision? A society of uneducated peasants under total control. The result? Genocide. Between 1975 and 1979, an estimated 1.5 to 2 million Cambodians died from execution, starvation, forced labor, and disease. Nearly a quarter of the entire population. Anyone deemed educated or bourgeois was marked for death. Wearing glasses could get you killed. Speaking a foreign language? A death sentence. Cambodia became a vast labor camp, a killing field that became the mass grave of millions. Pol Pot ruled through paranoia and fear until Vietnam invaded in 1979. He fled into the jungle with Khmer Rouge loyalists. And in 1998, he died of heart failure, unpunished, unrepentant. Number 3. Leopold II, the Butcher King of Congo. He ruled not with a sword, but with distance, deception, and unspeakable cruelty. Leopold II, King of Belgium, never set foot in Congo. Yet from 4,000 miles away, he ran one of the deadliest regimes the world has ever known. In 1885, he claimed the Congo Free State as his personal property, a land 76 times the size of Belgium, and called it a gift to civilization. What followed was slavery, torture, and mass death. Rubber was his gold, and every failure to deliver came with a price. Villages were burned, men executed, women taken hostage, and children had their hands cut off and displayed like trophies. To prove bullets hadn't been wasted, each mutilated limb, a receipt for forced labor. Congo became a graveyard with no names. Its rivers ran red. Its forests whispered with screams. And while millions perished, Leopold grew richer, building palaces, monuments, and a legacy of denial. By the time the world took notice, over 10 million Congolese were dead. He called it a civilizing mission. History calls it what it was: murder by monarchy. Leopold II, the king who never swung a sword, but left an entire nation in ruins. Number 2. Mao Zedong, the famine maker. He promised a new dawn, a revolution to lift millions from despair, but instead, he unleashed a nightmare. Mao Zedong, founder of the People's Republic of China, was hailed as a hero. But beneath the propaganda lurked a brutal reality. The Great Leap Forward, an experiment in forced collectivization, became a man-made Holocaust. From 1958 to 1962, at least 45 million souls were lost, starved, broken, erased. Fields once fertile turned to dust. Steel furnaces roared, but food production halted. Local officials, terrified of Mao's wrath, falsified crop reports, claiming abundant harvests to avoid punishment. Grain was seized from starving villages, and entire communities vanished. Parents watched helplessly as children withered away. Some were driven to cannibalism, a whispered horror behind closed doors. To speak out meant death. To stay silent meant starvation. Mao called it necessary growing pains. The world called it one of history's greatest human tragedies. Mass graves spread across the countryside, silent witnesses to a regime that valued ideology over life. Mao Zedong, the man who turned hope into horror, a leader who carved his vision into the bones of his own people. Number 1. Adolf Hitler, the architect of unimaginable horror. Adolf Hitler, a name carved into the darkest chapters of history, a failed artist turned demagogue, master of manipulation, fueled by hatred. He rose from the ashes of a broken Germany, crippled by World War I, humiliated by Versailles, strangled by economic collapse. He offered revival, pride, and revenge. But behind the roaring speeches lay a poisonous vision, a world purified through extermination. The Holocaust was no accident. It was cold, calculated genocide. 6 million Jews murdered with industrial precision, not in battle, but in gas chambers, death camps, and mass graves. Millions more, Roma, disabled, Slavs, dissidents, hunted, enslaved, starved, and slaughtered. And it didn't end there. His dream of empire plunged the world into fire. World War II, his war, unleashed a cataclysm. Blitzkrieg tore through Europe. Cities crumbled. Nations fell. Over 70 million lives lost, soldiers and civilians alike. Hitler's legacy is not just a warning. It's a scream from the past. Adolf Hitler, the tyrant who lit the match and watched the world burn. These were 10 of the most brutal leaders in history. Proof that power without mercy can turn men into monsters. History was wild. And we've got the receipts, people. Oh yeah, the past must be crazy.